Writing. Hide and seek was supposed to be a harmless childhood game. Almost everyone has played it at least once. You count, your friends hide, and a few minutes later everyone is laughing. But sometimes people hide in the wrong place. Sometimes they play in the wrong location. And sometimes, they discover they aren't the only ones playing. These are 3 scary true hide-and-seek horror stories that people still remember years later. The first story happened in a small town in Ohio during the summer of 2018. A group of 5 teenagers were spending the night at the house of their friend, Ryan. His parents had gone away for the weekend, leaving them alone in a large 2-story house on the edge of town. The house backed up to a stretch of woods that seemed endless after dark. By midnight they had already watched movies, eaten pizza, and exhausted every idea for entertainment. One of them jokingly suggested playing hide-and-seek in the dark. Everyone laughed at first, but within minutes they agreed. The rules were simple: no phones, no lights, and no leaving the property. Ryan volunteered to be the seeker first. The others scattered. Mark decided to hide in the basement. He quietly walked downstairs and squeezed behind a stack of old moving boxes near the furnace. The basement was dark and smelled of dust and concrete. For the first few minutes everything was normal. Then he heard footsteps. He smiled, assuming Ryan had found him. The footsteps moved slowly across the basement floor. They stopped only a few feet away. Mark waited. No one said anything. No one laughed. The silence stretched on. After nearly 30 seconds, Mark peeked around the boxes. Nobody was there. His stomach tightened. The basement was empty. He convinced himself he had imagined the sound and returned to his hiding place. A few moments later he heard the footsteps again. This time they sounded closer. One step, then another, then another. They stopped directly behind the boxes. Mark could hear breathing. Slow breathing. He remained frozen. The breathing continued for several seconds before suddenly stopping. At that exact moment Ryan shouted from upstairs. "Found you, Ethan." The voice echoed through the house. Mark felt his heart sink. If Ryan was upstairs finding Ethan, then who had been walking around the basement? Terrified, he jumped from his hiding place and ran upstairs. The others laughed when he told them what happened. They assumed he had scared himself. But Ryan looked confused. He admitted something strange had happened to him too. While searching one of the upstairs bedrooms, he thought he saw someone standing in the hallway outside the door. He assumed it was Ethan. When he stepped into the hall, nobody was there. The game ended shortly afterward. Nobody wanted to continue. The next morning they reviewed footage from a security camera located outside the basement door. At 12:34 a.m., while Mark was hiding downstairs, the camera captured the basement door slowly opening by itself. No one entered. No one exited. The door simply opened and remained that way for almost 2 minutes before closing again. The boys never found an explanation. The second story occurred in 2021 and was shared by a college student named Amanda. Amanda and several friends rented a large cabin near a forest for a weekend getaway. The cabin was old but beautiful. Surrounded by trees and miles away from the nearest town, it seemed like the perfect place to relax. On their second night there, someone suggested playing hide and seek outside. There were 8 people in total. The seeker would use a flashlight while everyone else hid somewhere around the property. Amanda found a hiding place behind an old wooden shed about 50 yards from the cabin. The location gave her a clear view of the surrounding woods. At first she enjoyed the silence. Then she noticed movement among the trees. A person was standing there. At least she thought it was a person. The figure stood completely still between 2 trees. Amanda couldn't see any facial features. Only a dark shape. She assumed it was one of her friends hiding. Trying not to laugh, she whispered, "Good spot." The figure didn't respond. Several seconds passed. Still nothing. Amanda felt uneasy. Most of her friends would have answered immediately. Then the figure slowly tilted its head. The movement was unnatural, almost mechanical. Amanda felt a chill run through her body. Before she could react, the figure stepped behind a tree and disappeared. She waited for someone to emerge. Nobody did. A few minutes later the seeker found her and the game ended. Back at the cabin Amanda mentioned the strange person she had seen. The room fell silent. Another friend named Josh looked pale. He said he had seen the same figure near the edge of the woods. A third friend spoke up. Then a fourth. 4 different people had seen the exact same thing. A tall person standing silently among the trees. No flashlight, no voice, no movement except occasionally turning its head. At first they assumed someone was trespassing on the property. The cabin owner lived nearby, so they called him. When he arrived, he listened carefully before asking where they had seen the figure. After hearing the location, he became noticeably uncomfortable. He explained that several years earlier a local hunter had vanished in that area. Search teams spent weeks looking for him. They never found a trace. The owner admitted that visitors occasionally reported seeing someone standing among the trees at night. Most people dismissed the stories as imagination. The group certainly wanted to dismiss them too. Then something happened that none of them could explain. One friend reviewed photos she had taken throughout the evening. In one image, taken before the game started, a tall figure could be seen standing deep in the woods behind the group. Nobody had noticed it at the time. The figure appeared to be watching them. No one returned outside that night. The final story happened in 2019 and remains one of the creepiest accounts of hide-and-seek ever shared online. A 16-year-old boy named Tyler attended a birthday party at a friend's house. The house was enormous. It had multiple floors, long hallways, and dozens of rooms. After several hours the group decided to play hide-and-seek in complete darkness. The birthday boy's parents were asleep upstairs. Everyone else spread throughout the house. Tyler chose to hide inside a large walk-in closet located in a guest bedroom. He quietly closed the door and sat among hanging coats. The darkness was absolute. Several minutes passed. Then he heard the bedroom door open. Someone entered. Tyler assumed it was the seeker. The footsteps crossed the room slowly. Then they stopped directly outside the closet. Tyler smiled. He knew he had been found. But instead of opening the door, whoever stood outside remained completely silent. A full minute passed. Then another. Tyler felt increasingly uncomfortable. The person on the other side of the door wasn't moving. Wasn't speaking. Wasn't leaving. Just standing there, listening. Finally Tyler whispered, "Okay, you got me." No answer. The silence continued. A cold feeling spread through his chest. Then he heard something. A soft scratching sound. Very slowly, very gently, dragging across the closet door. Tyler froze. The scratching continued for several seconds. Then stopped. Immediately afterward he heard footsteps running down the hallway. A loud voice echoed from another room. "Found Jason." It was the seeker. Tyler's blood ran cold. The seeker had been somewhere else entirely. That meant someone else had been standing outside the closet. Tyler burst from the closet and switched on the bedroom light. The room was empty. Nobody was there. Shaken, he went downstairs and told the others. Most assumed one of the players had been pranking him. The game continued. About 10 minutes later another teenager named Chloe came running downstairs in tears. She had been hiding in a laundry room. While sitting behind a washing machine, she heard someone whisper her name. The voice sounded like it came from inside the room. She thought a friend was teasing her. Then the voice whispered her name again. Closer, right beside her ear. When she turned around, nobody was there. The party ended shortly afterward. Years later Tyler learned something disturbing about the house. The property had once belonged to an elderly man who lived alone. According to neighbors, he spent years wandering the house after the death of his wife. He eventually passed away inside one of the bedrooms. Whether the stories were connected to that history remains unknown. What Tyler does know is that someone stood outside that closet door. Someone who scratched softly against the wood. Someone who disappeared before the light came on. Hide and seek seems simple. It's a game built around finding people who don't want to be found. But these stories remind us that sometimes strange things happen when darkness, silence, and imagination come together. Maybe every sound has a logical explanation. Maybe every shadow is just a trick of the light. Or maybe, every once in a while, someone playing hide and seek discovers a terrifying possibility. Maybe they aren't hiding from the seeker at all. Maybe something else is searching for them in the dark, patiently waiting to whisper the words nobody ever wants to hear, "Found you."